Hello everybody, welcome here, or welcome back, whatever the case may be. I've got the sun in my eyes and I just put Visine in, so that my eyes are probably still pretty red and irritated. It's dusty, I'm also allergic to dust, so this is just not ideal for sitting down and talking, but I came to, let's put it this way, I was having a thought process. It started with a single thought. And then I started connecting a lot of things that I hadn't connected before. And all of that caused me to ponder the question, do I have an addictive personality? What is that anyway? Or is this just how I see a bunch of unconnected yet similar things about myself? So I started thinking of the little things that I have noticed. I've noticed if I have a bag of potato chips open, I will eat an entire bag of potato chips before I really move on to much of anything else. That's just how it is. If there isn't an open bag of potato chips, I don't have any potato chips. And if I want some and I'm craving them and I want them bad enough, I will go to the store and get a bag of chips. I don't really keep that sort of thing in the house because if they are here, I will just grab them. I've also been known to have a few, be satisfied, seal the bag up, put it away in another room, in a pantry, it's out of sight, out of mind. And I'm doing something else. And then the next thing I realize consciously is that I have that bag of potato chips open and I'm eating them again. And I have no recollection really of going and retrieving them and bringing them back. And it's very absent-minded. It's something I tend to do, I guess, subconsciously. And that's just information I noticed about myself and filed it away going, what an anomaly. So my solution is do not have potato chips in the house. And if I do, try to share them with somebody or just realize I'm going to eat that entire bag of potato chips before I move on to some other kind of more nutritious food. I'm gonna have a cigarette while I do this too. I shouldn't. I really am trying very hard to, at least while I am doing things that I'm going to be putting up online, to not do anything that looks like I would be promoting smoking cigarettes, because I don't like that. But it is a fact of my life, and my channel is about honesty, so this is me being honest. I've mentioned in the past, my father used to say that he would be able to quit anytime, and when I was younger, I believed my father when he told me anything, really. And it is one of the things that led to my rebellion, not the cigarettes specifically, but that pattern of lying to children is not a good thing. But all of those things have led me to this severe, intense need for honesty at all times that I'm at now. Perhaps a happy medium would be a better balance, but I am very happy with where I'm at. But he would say, I can quit smoking anytime I like it was no big deal. So when I started, and my first cigarette, might as well have this story right now too. My first cigarette, I was 9. Now my very first, and again, it was just really a joke, probably. I was just mimicking. I was a toddler because I had toddled over, apparently. This is the story that I was told. My uncle, who smoked at the time, he had quit. My father smoked, my mom smoked. My mom had to quit because one of her lungs collapsed and part of the other one. And so she had to have surgery and have a lung removed. And that was way back in the 70s. A whole lot of stories around there. And my dad needing to take care of us and forgetting to pick us up at school. Oh, tons of stories. They're kind of all funny now. They were really quite big deals and quite formulative to how I turned out as a person. But I do look back at them with a certain sense of amusement, even the things that might have been mortifying at the time. That a lot of those stories aren't mortifying to me, but they should be mortifying to somebody. So there's a picture of me from the stories that I've been told, and I've seen the picture, where my uncle had tossed a cigarette butt, and I toddled over to it because I could barely walk apparently, and just sort of learned to walk without falling over and holding on to things. So whatever age that would have been, I don't really remember anymore. It was that long ago. And I guess I picked up the cigarette, and I'm thinking, they let me pick up a cigarette that still technically was burning. There was just a little stub. Fortunately, I grabbed it without burning my fingers, and I put it up to my mouth, and they have a picture of that. So my thought looking at it, because it's very similar to, except for it's a lot easier now with cell phones, but it's very similar to that mentality of you see something, it's kind of odd, and you want to document it somehow. So the first thought is not, let's stop that child from picking up that burning cigarette. It's, oh my gosh, we've got to get a picture of this. So that was, I guess, my first sort of connection to a cigarette, even though I'm sure I did not inhale or smoke or anything. I just mimicked what I watched the grown-ups do, is you just put it to your mouth. And I'm thinking, what if I had that up the other way? I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I could have burnt my lips, and it's like, yeah, that's what you get a picture of, Mom. I don't know who took the picture. I'm not sure if my mom was. I don't think Mom would have let that happen. But again, both my parents smoked at the time, so they probably wouldn't have thought anything serious of it until the harm happened. And then it's like, oh, how did we let that happen? Because, they're fallible human beings. I don't think they were terrible, unattentive parents. They used to put me in a harness and attach me to a clothesline so I wouldn't wander off. Side story there. I chewed through that leather harness, escaped under a fence, and was gone overnight. So that was a totally different story. They learned not to just chain me to an anything, really. If there's a way to escape, I would escape. You're not going to restrain me. You're not going to tell me who I am and what I'm going to do. I will do what I believe is morally correct at any and all times. Now, the reason I was in the harness, I guess I should say that, was my mom was going in and out of the house to do laundry. It was a fairly big house, so you'd be gone inside for 5 or 10 minutes, and then she'd be out and she'd be hanging some more laundry on the line, because that's what we did back then. And I was attached to that clothesline, so I could sort of run. Well, it wasn't even that clothesline, it's a separate clothesline. My mom was using the one here. We had, I think, 3 lined up in a row. It was a big property, and you'd have like a lot of sheets because there were a lot of bedrooms and different things. So that's what was available. It was kind of okay. I never really thought much about it before or since until now for some reason, and it's not particularly relevant, other than I was attached by a harness to a leash thing that went up and attached to the clothesline, so I had a certain amount of freedom, but really couldn't get away unless you chew through the leather of the harness. And I'm thinking, children really are just like caged animals. You do that to an animal. If an animal can escape, it's going to escape if it wants to escape. And that was supposed to keep me safe while Mom ran in and out doing the thing so she could focus on what needed to be done and not have to worry about me. And I don't think she ever was able to not worry about me again after that. So that's a separate story. So that is the types of things that, I don't think Mom would have allowed much of anything to, she has allowed a lot. She's very naive. She just can't possibly foresee certain things due to her naivete. And then after the fact, it's just a bewilderment to her of like going, how does that happen? Like, she still can't fathom how things like that happen because her brain just doesn't process things in from the point of view of a criminal or doing the wrong thing. She just has this innocent naivete about her that will sometimes come across as, well, my father used to call her stupid, and it used to annoy me because she's not stupid, but she was naive. And I've made the distinction in the past when I've been talking about things that there's a definite difference between naivete and stupidity. Naivete is when you don't even know enough to know that there is something to be aware of, really. So when you come across it, you could not possibly have foreseen that. So you're just dealing with it as it comes up and you have nothing to base it on. Stupidity is when you know all of these things and you still choose to either ignore what you know is true or that's stupidity to me. Very big difference. And again, all of these things to say that, sometimes my parents meant well, but weren't always as aware of things due to their own fears of certain topics of discussion. So a lot of things would just be avoided if they could at all be avoided. That was their way of dealing with things, that everything was cool as long as nobody's talking about something that's uncomfortable. Because that's how reality works. If you don't talk about it, it just doesn't exist. Awareness. Everything in the world comes down to awareness. The more things we are aware of, the more things that we get to know to be fact and true, the less mistakes we will make, the more harmonious everything will be in the happier we'll all be. Because my entire existence is about the pursuit of happiness. Otherwise, what point? I certainly couldn't have been born to make money, right? Like, that's something that you learn as you grow, that this is, in order to have these things that make you happy, you need this, and all of these man-made constructs in order to achieve certain things. And it's good. I think structure is important. I certainly do not advocate for anarchy. That's not something I think is a good idea either. I am all for critical thinking, and that could be people learning things that push against what I believe, and that may make me uncomfortable and unhappy, but I will at least still know that that is the right thing. That's what is supposed to be happening, whether I like it or not. It's not about me, my life, my existence. That's all about me. I can't blame anybody else for who I am. But I am not responsible for other people's lack of knowledge or understanding or whatever it is that they're going through. I was going to talk about cigarettes. I haven't even lit this yet. But at least that reminded me that the first time I actually had a cigarette, where I had a whole, well, not even a whole cigarette. I guess I was having a few, well, I guess I would have called them puffs back then. Because even my mom and dad would say, have puffs off a cigarette. It was a 70s thing, I think. I don't know if people still say that. Because by the time I got into high school in the 80s, and you're like, can I have a drag of your cigarette? You're right, so we weren't saying puff anymore. Anyway, I digress again. Is that my brand? Am I the digressor? I'm so digressive. I'm passive digressive. But I was 9, and I do recall that was my first time where I actually tried to inhale and I was coughing. And I don't think I had much before that other than like the odd puff here and there. But that would be my cigarette where I'm thinking about the actual lighting, I'm going to light it. So I was 9 and I would have my first inhale. I would cough. And not much, but occasionally, back then, I had some friends who were, between 12 and 14, and they would occasionally do it. So, nobody was a smoker, but everybody went, yeah, we have a cigarette. It was a cool thing to do, which it is absolutely not. It is the antithesis of being a cool thing. It is a very uncool thing. There are things about it that I like. I find the most social people and the easiest to get to know people are smokers, because we collectively congregate in a specific area and have, for the most part, through most of my existence. It got more and more restrictive, and I know a lot of my friends who were smokers kept going, oh, this is terrible, we're just losing all these things, we're losing all these. And I kept thinking, no, it's going to make things better. It's concentrating us in, fortunately, because it started concentrating. I remember going to bingo halls, and most of the area is non-smoking, and then you have the smoking section, which is this small little totally self-contained area full of clouds of smoke, because everybody in there's just constantly smoking and nothing but the smokers, so there's nothing to space that out. Now I don't think there's smoking at all. I don't think, if you want to smoke, then you stop playing your game, you go out and smoke and come back if that's what you really want to do, and make your choices. But I think it's funny watching things evolve as I've gotten older, because some things I can't imagine going back to, like just smoking inside, smoking in theaters, smoking, all of that stuff that was normal at a certain time just seems so weird to me now. So when people say they want to go back to certain times, I'm thinking, do you? Do you really want to go back to these times? There's a lot of other things beyond whatever memories you've romanticized about an era. There's always so much more to it than that. So do you really think about it before you make firm decisions about such things? I personally would always prefer to be moving forward, even if that means certain things regress because we've learned enough to know that that's a smart thing to do, but not based on an emotional response to a false memory that we've created about a certain time period. Now, the next noticeable thing for me in my smoking journey was when I got to grade 7. And that's when I'd start having, I'd say, a couple of cigarettes a week, and stayed that way through most of grade 8. Then in grade 9, I still had all the same kind of friends, so I still smoked. maybe once a day at school, a get together with them at least one break during the day, maybe twice occasionally. But generally speaking, I always chose other things to do, but I'd always pick going to the smoking area for at least one of my breaks during the school day. And then I graduated from grade 9 and we moved up to Owen Sound, and I went into grade 10. And because I didn't have my same friends, everything was new, I just didn't smoke. And guess it was about halfway through grade 10. People had never seen me with a cigarette, and I remember saying something to them. People were talking about smoking, and I was commenting like I knew what I was talking about because of experience. And they were like, well, you don't smoke, so how would you know? And I'm like, well, I used to smoke. And people just didn't believe me. So I guess in order to make them believe me, because things like that used to be important, it's like, oh my gosh, how dare you not believe this true thing that I know is true? I have to prove it somehow. So I would take a cigarette from them just to show them, and I would just to show them that, yeah, see, I can smoke. They were shocked, and that was that. Then my very next break, I was at the store and bought a pack of cigarettes. From that point on, I was a smoker until, 16 years ago, somewhere around there. And Denis, who had already had open heart surgery, he was a smoker still, and he had another heart issue and went into the hospital. So while he was in the hospital and wasn't smoking and couldn't go out to smoke, he was able to sort of start a withdrawal process for himself, and he stopped smoking, and he hasn't smoked since. So good for him. Very proud of him. And I, being as we had one brand new carton of cigarettes, said, when I'm done this carton of cigarettes, that's it, I quit. So it's like lighting a wick on a countdown. At first I, smoked kind of normally, then I went, oh, these are gonna be my last cigarettes, so I'd better ration them. So I kind of naturally weaned myself down a bit just by trying to make them last. And then I had a client over. I had 2 cigarettes left. I had a client over, and she asked if she could have a cigarette, and I'm thinking, it's my last 2 cigarettes. Do I give one away? And I wasn't going to, because I thought, oh, selfish, just can't give away my last cigarette. I've only got 2 forever for the rest of my life. And I thought, that's a lot of pressure. I thought, well, what is the difference between having this one as my last cigarette or having one more after this? Like, reasonably, like what? Like, it just seemed so irrational to think in that greedy way. It was like, doesn't make sense. And I said, sure. I said, when we're done here, let's just go out. And I told her, I said, it's my last cigarette, so we will have my last cigarette together. And so we did. Sadly, she's passed now. She never did. She kept trying to quit smoking, but she never did. But I quit. That was my last cigarette for 4.5 years. And then being around other people that smoked, the smell nauseated me. So I literally took my first drag just to get accustomed to the scent. And I didn't smoke. I just would have a drag of a cigarette, and I could tolerate being around people without constantly just going, oh my God, they smell so bad. Oh my God, they smell so bad. So I realize now what I must smell like to a non-smoker, even though I don't notice it at all. And that's what got me back into it, and I've smoked ever since. But I do know that when I get ready to quit, it'll be the same thing. I will quit because I've done it before successfully. I will be able to do it again successfully. But I know what the challenge is going to be, and I do know that I have to mentally be in that mindset that that's what I'm doing, and I just don't feel that yet for whatever reason. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about, the smoking. But that is part of it, like the whole addictive personality thing. And it also seems to apply in terms of things that become turn-based. That's how I started looking at it, based on video games, because I never really thought about it. And this is part of the process of me pulling all these things together. But I will talk about the turn-based games where I'm getting invested in something where I go, okay, well, I gotta go and do something else. And it's like, but just this one more click, showing I'm just going to do this one more thing. I got to set this next thing up. I've got to do it before I save. And that also applies whether it's a video game or not to when I'm editing something. Quite often, I don't know how to stop what I'm doing, even though I know I need to stop what I'm doing because my brain just is getting fried and I need to sleep, but I'm still going, well, I'm just going to do this one last thing. This one last thing becomes another one last thing. And I thought, geez, that's the same as when I'm playing the video game and I have to do that one last click, or I don't know, I don't gamble. That's one thing that's probably smart. I just don't. I haven't been to a casino. At some point I'm going to go into a casino and I'm going to probably have a certain amount that and see whether I can resist after having had the experience. Because if I haven't had the experience, I don't know what I'm missing, and I'm fine with that. But once I know what I'm missing, it's just one more turn. Gotta do one more thing. Gotta stay one last minute. And that applied too when I was a child. I just wanted to stay up for one more minute, just one more minute, or 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And I know things like that are common, but I'm wondering if all of that want of 5 more minutes may not be indicative of something that will show itself in a different way later. I don't know. I can't speak for other people that might have had those same experiences, whether they feel the same way as I do now about certain things. I just don't know. I don't have that data. I'm not sure how people say data, a piece of datum, but I digress again. I did have other points, other things that I had noticed that I was going to mention, and I just can't think of what they are now. So I'm hoping that if I do think of them, that I can write them and put them somewhere and put them right across my face. Your idea here. I don't know. But I'm going to call her quits here because it's been half an hour. So until the next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.